Hello, guys, and welcome back to a brand new episode of our Game of Thrones review and discussion series. I'm Chris Garner, joined once again with Tate Hour to give our review on Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4, The Desolation of Drogon. Sorry, I mean the Spoils of War. Arguably, we're going to get into the dragon attack talk later on, but I think we're all in agreement right now that this is probably one of the most impressive action set pieces that Game of Thrones has ever had to offer. But we're not just going to be talking about that. Of course, we're going to be talking about every single scene in the episode. Going from the beginning of the map, we always start at the northernmost point of Westeros, so we talk about Beyond the Wall or Winterfell, and work our way down to the bottom. As of now, I don't know whether we're going to have a George. He finishes work a little after 9. But I'm guessing that this is going to be a pretty long discussion, so maybe we'll have a surprise appearance from George again like we did this week. So yeah, back over to you, Tate.
This, and I'm sure that people are in agreement, I want to say this is the best whole-rounded episode we have ever had. With these previous series finales, or, well, I say finales, with the episode 9s of previous series, we've had splits between it being one long battle sequence. So, for example, Blackwater, Watched on the Wall, or Battle of the Bastards. Split between the other episodes, like Baelor, the Reigns of Castamere, which travel all around the map and do their own thing. This is one of those travel around the map, do its own thing episodes, but it is by far the best one we have had so far. I'd say better than the Reigns of Castamere. I'd say better than Baelor. In that sense, at the moment, it stood on a 9.9 on IMDb, and I can completely understand why. This episode is phenomenal. Truly is. The narrative that it follows, what has been said in the episode, it's a quotable episode. It's a phenomenal action sequence episode. It just had everything, and it felt cinematic as well. I know we'll talk about this more when we actually go deeper into the episode, but the music on this episode felt different. It felt elevated. It felt more cinematic. Felt more like it was trying to build because it's starting to come to an end. And sometimes, like TV shows, if they know they're going to end, they start to dip down. But this is just, they're throwing all the budget at it. They're throwing everything at it. All of the actors have raised their games highly in this series. And this is just completely this is the peak at the moment of time. And we've seen things from next episode 5. We have seen elements of that in the original trailer. We haven't seen a single thing from episode 6 or 7. What does that make me think? Oh my god, what have they not shown us? If this is the best episode to date so far, or maybe even tied with Winter Battle of the Bastards, keep on saying it.
Where we got the name from?
Advertising for our own show, I promise. Battle of Bastards, there we go. Then, dear Lord, what have they got in store for us in the final 2 episodes of the series? Oh my god.
Yeah, and we're going to get into the discussion in a little while, but this episode, certainly the last 15 minutes or so, really pushed the boundaries to me of what can be done on the small screen on TV. And granted, unlike most TV series, this does have a higher budget, does have an elevated budget, but even still, I'm going to get into it when we talk about the dragon attack, but this vastly surpassed what you see in most big budget multi-million-dollar movies on the big screen. It was truly incredible. Before we get into our talk,
I think there was something you put on Facebook about The Hobbit.
Yes. I put, if the ending to Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 4 can top The Hobbit, you know The Hobbit fucked up. And absolutely, I'll talk more about that later on once we get to the dragon attack. Before we get into our discussion on episode 4, though, obviously the comment section is open, so get commenting throughout the episode. Let us know what you thought of this episode and each of the segments we talk about. I do have to talk about some of the comments from last week's episode, though. At the end of last week's episode, we put a question out to the people. 2 questions, in fact. If Cersei married Euron Greyjoy, which one do you think would kill the other first? And also, do you think that Cersei Lannister does indeed like a finger at the bum? We do have some answers from people. We have a comment from Richie Rich, who said the answer to question 1. I think Euron's plan is to marry Cersei, kill her, and claim the throne. But I think she sees through that plan and would treat him with a purple wedding 2.0. Interesting theory. And answer number 2, Cersei does not like a finger in the bum. She's far too controlling for that. She seems more the type to put her finger in a bum unannounced. Entirely possible. We also have a comment from Suzanne Redding. The answer to question 1. Cersei would kill Euron, or as I call him, Eurine. I guess.
Interesting.
Okay. That nightclub walking fake patent leather emo mofo would be clobbered the first night he came home late with Cure Revival from a Cure Revival concert. And the answer to question 2, Cersei likes it in the bummaroony. That's the first time I've ever heard that expression, and probably the last time I'll ever hear that expression. Look at that! Look at the friggin' zombified version of the Mountain and his new helmet this season. You think that thing is just for battle? It's a freaking giant peena. She probably lays in her bed and has him getting a running start, head down, straight up the choochie starfish. That's chocky starfish. Chocky starfish. That's even wow. Susan went places with that comment. I think that's a good segue as ever to get into our discussion for episode 4 and distance ourselves from these last week's as much as possible.
In fact, we're going to go with distance ourselves completely. We're going to go up to Winterfell. Not up to Winterfell. Go up to Winterfell. We're going to travel across the country towards Winterfell in a non-distinct upwards direction. And we're going to start with what I've literally just put down here. Chaos. Chaos is a ladder. And my God, what a start we have here. Chaos is a ladder is my favorite speech from Game of Thrones of all time. It's the best speech. It's the best speech seen in the show. And then having him being the controlling character he is, have it all blow up back in his face by having one little sentence read out to him is incredible. And it shows the power that Bran really has this season. I know he's a very distant character, as we'll talk about when we move on to the next point in this episode. But now that he is the Three-Eyed Raven, he has a lot more power, and I don't think Peter Littlefinger Baelish understood it up until that point. And I think he now kind of understands what the hell he's dealing with, and I think that sentence alone pretty much spelled the death of his character.
Yeah, I agree, and I definitely think that Littlefinger is for the chop this season. I really hope that's not the case because he is my favourite character, but I think now he finally realises that there's other forces at work in this world, more than he could imagine. Like, I think he just had his eyes on, like, armies and things like that. Now he's throwing magic and soothsaying into the mix. He can't go up against that stuff. And the fact, not just that, but the fact that all the Starks are pretty much reuniting as well. Now we have 3 together in this episode. They are really becoming a force to be reckoned with. The North remembers and all that. And I think Littlefinger knows that he's very much out of his depth in this one. As always, I keep saying this, I've got to believe that he has a plan. At least the Littlefinger in the books always seems to be 1,000 steps ahead of every single person he comes into contact with. And I hope that's the case for the show. But that line drop from Bran, Chaos is a ladder, and oh God, what's the name of the actor? Aidan Gillen, I think his name is,
Aidan
isn't
Gillen,
it? The one
yeah.
who plays Littlefinger.
He just recoils completely.
Yeah, how he played that was absolutely perfect for that moment. But I do think we're going to talk more about the Winterfell stuff in a minute, but I think they're already planting the seeds and little clues here and there to the fact that Littlefinger probably won't make it out of this episode. I will say, though, I do like how, again, like this season's done pretty much all the way through in every episode, they've had elements that tie it back to season 1. It does feel like it's getting to that point now where it's becoming full circle.
Tales of the Ladder was season 3, I want to say.
3, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was done in a montage, I believe, where you saw Roz's death in that. I can't remember who he was talking to. Was he talking to Varys in that scene or Sansa? I can't remember.
Let me find out. It's the scene because I believe Sansa could have taken a ship back.
Yes, it does cut to her, doesn't it? Yeah.
He does it with Varys looking at the Iron Throne. What a time!
Which were always among my favourite. Yeah, which are always among my favourite scenes of Game of Thrones. But going back to the dagger thing, I like how it's tying back to season 1. And really, it's still one of the big, at least in the show, unanswered questions of the entire season so far. I'm surprised they haven't come back to it before, but you can clearly see it's building up to something big. In the books, it is revealed in, I think it's book 3, A Storm of Swords. I can't remember which part of that book, but it's a real throwaway line. And maybe, I mean, the books haven't completely caught up to where the show is now. The show's gone way, way past the books, and who knows, the books might do something different. But it's revealed in the books that Joffrey was the one who gave the dagger to the assassin. He overheard Robert and Cersei talking about how problematic Bran being alive would be. It was either Jaime or Cersei, or Robert and Cersei. And to try and win his father's affection, he wanted to try and get the job done for them. So he got the dagger and gave it to a cutthroat, and the rest is history. I didn't like that in the book. It felt very anticlimactic and very just sort of second thought, just write something in. Maybe that will change in book 6 or 7, which are still unannounced. Not unannounced, sorry. The dates are unannounced currently. But I think the show is gearing up for something bigger. And I'm going to make a prediction right now, which might tie into Littlefinger's demise. I think it was Littlefinger. That's always been the person I wish it had have been. Because if you do think about that, and Littlefinger wanted Bran dead, he has essentially set everything up from the beginning. Not just the dagger stuff, but remember, he set up the Jon Arryn thing as well.
Yeah.
With Lysa. He will have propelled this entire series of events into motion. And I think that would be great to tie him into the dagger as well.
I mean, who else could it be at this stage? It could be either Cersei or Jaime, but that would kind of detract from their character. I mean, it wouldn't detract from Cersei's character, but it'd definitely detract from Jaime's character. Maybe he can throw it away as saying like it was a mistake from his past. He regrets it or anything like that. But yeah, it being Joffrey, it would have made sense if it was revealed before his death.
Yeah.
Or like he had it revealed to someone before his death, maybe like Sansa kind of. And then Sansa kind of holding that against, and then maybe Sansa revealing it to Bran then, or Bran saying, yeah, I already know because I'm a tree creature now. But yeah, I think I know that we're going to move on now to...
I was going to just... one last thing about the dagger, though.
Sure.
But if Bran's now all-seeing, and not just future events, present events, but also past events, wouldn't Bran know that Littlefinger set everything up, or do you think he already knows? And he's playing it?
Hello.
Hello, we have a George. How you doing?
We have a gatecrasher.
We have a wild George running home from work. Well, not running, actually. I'm walking home from work again on the Game of Thrones review.
On the King's Road again.
Yes,
we haven't got
King's
that
Road.
far in. We haven't got that far into it, man. We're just talking about the dagger that Littlefinger gave Bran, and whether we think that Bran knows who gave the dagger to the cutthroat in the first place.
What Bran does know is that he says that quote to Littlefinger about chaos is a ladder, and it's the same quote that Littlefinger said in, is it season 3?
Yeah.
So that's what got Littlefinger a bit triggered. But no, that's my initial thoughts. I'm going to do what I did last time. I'm just going to mute my mic in case it gets loud, and I'll chime in when I need to, people.
Awesome. But yeah, no, there's definitely a lot being set up about the dagger, but we'll move on to the next bit now, if you like.
Yes, let us move on to Mira Reed. Now, a character who we haven't really seen much of this series. She had a huge role in the last series, basically having to protect Bran when Hodor sacrificed himself, having to protect Bran since Series 3 in general. And this is probably the saddest scene of this episode. It's one which I'm sure we've been seeing coming. Mira obviously has completed her job. She's returned Bran safely. But at the same time, she's lost so much getting there. And all Bran can really say is, you can go now. And he says a very throwaway thank you after that. And it destroys her, because it makes her completely question what she was doing in the first place, whether it was all worth it. I mean, she even says, like, it's not just people who I've lost, it's people who you've lost as well. And he's like, it's so much more than that now. And she says the line which I think everyone has been thinking since the Hold the Door episode, but Bran, you died in that cave. We can barely call this character Bran anymore.
Yeah, even he can't call himself Bran anymore. He says, like, I'm not Brandon Stark anymore. Not really.
I remember being Brandon Stark, but he's gone now.
Yeah. And it was, I think that's probably the last we're going to see of Mira at this point now. I think, well, essentially her character has served her purpose. She did what she set out to do. But it was a very sad moment, especially when you do recall how long it took them to get to that bloody cave. Like, how long were they traveling since, like, season 2?
Series 3, I believe.
Yeah.
They started making the way for the cave, yeah.
It's been a long time, and then just to have that kind of closure to her character and Bran, it did hit you. Like, her reaction to that was exactly mirrored mine when he said that. It did catch me off guard, but we have to come to terms now that Bran has evolved, I guess, to this higher plane of being. So he's almost like a demigod at this point. I remember when we watched episode 1 or I can't remember which episode it was, but we said we weren't too keen on how the character was playing. You know, the actor of Bran was playing the new style of character. I don't know, after this episode, it's made me come around to it a little bit more. But then again, I mentioned this last time, but when we have Max von Sydow, he still was this all-seeing character. But he still felt like somewhat of a normal person, like in conversation. He didn't have this very monotone, expressionless
I feel like,
face to him.
and I think the actor said this in an interview, but he said that he's literally just learning. He's only just had it happen to him. And because of that, it takes maybe a bit of time to adjust to it and a bit of time to kind of get your head around everything and seeing everything and knowing everything. And because of that, Bran's brain is not in capacity at the moment to act out in any way, shape, or form, and it'll come with time. But for the time being, personally, I think Bran's going to die by the end of the series. I think the Three-Eyed Raven's just going to. I think the Three-Eyed Raven will die off, or he will disappear off into beyond the wall once the war is over and stuff like that, and no one will ever see him again.
I don't think
it'll be one of those two.
If he dies, it'll be season 8. But now the fact that they've just reunited all the Starks and made a big deal of it, and that Bran's gone through all this journey and returned here, I don't think they're going to kill him off, because remember, he still has to fly at some point. That still has to happen, and I think it's going to be a dragon. As soon as I read that in the book, as soon as I saw that in the show, he's
going to walk into a dragon. Yeah, that was book 1 or 2. Book 1 or 2 that he said that he was going to fly.
And he'll turn the dragons on Daenerys, and I don't know whether he'll turn the tide completely, but I definitely think he'll level the playing field out when it gets to that final big fight.
So anyway, let's move on to Arya's return. She is back, and she gets the beautiful welcome of 2 guards just telling her to fuck off.
They were brilliant. They reminded me of like a R-rated Game of Thrones version of Murtogh and Mulroy from Pirates of the Caribbean. How they kind of turn their back and then just, something happens behind them without them knowing. They reminded me of that.
You go tell Lord Stark, or I'm going to slap you.
I love the other guy where he's like, so yeah, best fuck off. Like, I love that. I love how they played that.
It's brilliant because, like, even when he goes to punch her and then she just kind of looks and turns and starts speaking to the other person, like she doesn't even care about the person who just tried to punch her anymore.
She hit that quick time event and the video game and just dodged it like Matrix style. I thought it was a really nice return, and it's always the fact that when that Ramin Djawadi, I think you pronounce it, Ramin Djawadi soundtrack kicks in with that Stark theme on the cello, it always gets me in the heart, always gets me in the feels, and especially the fact we've seen a lot of characters reunite this episode. We also have another reunion later on in the episode, which we'll talk about at Dragonstone. But it's nice to see these characters. Go on, sorry. Yeah.
I want to say that, like, as far as the reunions are concerned, it's starting to get less and less and less. And I think the biggest one, or maybe even the smallest one, might be Arya and Jon when they finally do meet again, which is probably going to happen next episode, let's be honest here. But if we look back at Sansa and Jon meeting back in the last series, that was a big moment. That was a huge moment. One of the biggest moments of the series post Jon's resurrection. Then we have the next one, which is Bran and Sansa. It's less. There isn't as much there. There's a bit of kind of uneasiness with it. And with this one, it's less of uneasiness. It's more of kind of just they are aware that each other, like, they're alive and they're aware they've got through it. But it doesn't feel like the most heartfelt reunion when they go down into the crypt. No. It's just there's no music playing. It's just them in the crypt. And yeah, it's very interestingly played because a lot has changed. Like, I mean, the first line that Sansa basically says to her is, you shouldn't have run off in King's Landing. Or no, not King's Landing, sorry. That's what I thought it was when she first said it. You shouldn't have run off from the guards and stuff like that. Or not even like, oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long. How have you been? And stuff like that. How did you survive? It's just straight away, like, straight to her duties. And Arya respects that.
Yeah. And I guess the sap in me was hoping for, like, heartfelt reunions all across the board, really. And I guess it kind of was between Arya and Bran, the way that Arya just kind of walks up to him and just hugs him in the chair. But it did still feel really uneasy between her and Sansa. I mean, they still embraced, they still talked about old family.
They didn't get along that well. If you remember back to series 1, they really did not get on. But now I feel like they respect each other more.
Yeah,
they've both grown as characters, but in series 1, they were at each other's throats.
Yeah, and I think that I like how they both played it though in this episode, because obviously we know they're great friends in real life, Maisie Williams and Sophie Turner. But they both changed as people from series 1. They both say that the roads back to Winterfell haven't been easy for both of them. They have become different people now. I still like how Maisie Williams is playing the complete sociopath that is now Arya Stark. Like, she feels very distant. She feels very haunted.
The first thing she did this series was like kill off an entire house.
Yeah. And I don't see Arya. Arya doesn't strike me as the kind of person that's going to just want to stay around in Winterfell and not do anything. She's going to want to get her hands dirty. She's going to want to take some more people off her list.
Do you think she'll go to Eastwatch?
I don't know if she'll go to Eastwatch. I don't really know what reason she'd have to go there. I think she's this woman on a mission to remove all those names off the list. She's essentially like Beatrix Kiddo from Kill Bill at this stage.
I know she has the list. For people who don't know, the next episode preview, it's called Eastwatch, the next episode. So the whole scenes from the trailer of having to go to Eastwatch by the sea and fighting the undead horde, that's going to happen next episode. Jon's probably going to have to pass back through Winterfell. He'll meet up with the Hound. He'll meet up with the Brotherhood Without Banners. They might take Brienne up with them. We don't know. But you have to remember that they immediately point out that it's a Valyrian steel dagger. It's not just it's a dagger, it's a Valyrian steel dagger. And they make sure that you hear the words Valyrian steel. They make sure that you see Arya takes it. So she's going to have to use it at some point. She's going to have to kill something with it at some point. Probably a White Walker or one of the undead. Because of that, I think she might go north, but I don't know how far north. I don't know whether she'll go to Eastwatch, but I think she will. I don't know. There isn't anyone on the list going up north, maybe. But at the same time,
to be honest, I don't know which name she has. With the exception of Cersei, I don't know what other name she has on her list, because
Cersei, the Mountain, the Hound, but the Hound is also off her list.
Yeah, because there was that uneasy sort of acceptance and respect for each other with the Hound. But like, she added way more names to the list than are even in the book. Like, some that felt completely pointless to me. Like, I know she added Beric Dondarrion and Thoros of Myr to the list.
The Red Woman's still on the list.
Like, they added way more to the list than I think they should have done. Like, I know Ilan Payne was on there as well, which is a book thing. The actor bowed out though after season 2, I believe. I think he was like suffering with cancer at the time, but he made a full recovery. But they just haven't put him back into the show. Yeah, I think they kind of swept that under the rug now, hoping that audiences have forgotten about that. So I'm interested to see which names are on there. I think it's just going to be Cersei's just going to be the big one at this point.
Will another theory that people are saying? I know we're going into theories for next episode now, based off this, but if people are thinking Gendry escaping from Dragonstone, where would you go? You probably go to the Wall and join the Watch so that you can't be killed or anything like that. Maybe he's at Eastwatch.
That's a good point, because I think has it been confirmed, or there was a leaked casting picture with Gendry back in this season? And I think that next
that would be the most logical place for him to be.
Yeah,
that's the most logical place for him to be, at Eastwatch. If that's the case, Arya going north, that would be a good reunion there. Especially if she might be reuniting with the Hound this episode. But anyway, let's move on.
We're going to see a reunion again. Absolutely.
Let's move on. So Bran gives Arya the knife, which we've just talked about. Is going to be used, hopefully. Then Brienne. This happened before, but I just wanted to put all the Brienne stuff together in this part. Brienne kept her word after saying to Catelyn Stark, "I'm going to protect both of your kids," even though she only really protected one of them and tried to protect the other. It worked out in the end. She was able to protect everyone that she meant to, and Pod even says it, like, "You're being too hard on yourself here. You have to remember that they are back safe. I know that the journey wasn't good, but at the same time, they made it."
Yeah, and I love that. I like how they did the callback to the "I'm not a lady" thing, but she just kind of accepts it that's how Pod refers to her now. The sparring session between her and Arya was fantastic. I loved that. How Gwendolyn Christie played it, the surprise on her face when she realised just how proficient a fighter Arya's become. There was one line, though, that Arya said which slightly confused me. Brienne said, "How did you learn to fight like that? Who taught you to fight like that?" And she says, "No one." That's not specifically true because it was Syrio Forel. Unless it's implying that Syrio Forel could have indeed been a faceless man, but that was never said. He never said that to her. I don't know why she made that connection.
He learned how to fight properly that way. Learn and master the art of through going to the Ninja Assassin Academy, fighting whilst blind, and that was what her instincts were based off. That's how she became a good fighter. Funnily enough, a callback to Sansa in Series 5 saying, "No one can save me. No one has returned. No one will protect her." Who is no one? Arya is no one. Arya will now protect Sansa. Good job, Game of Thrones writing team. Let's move away.
I was just going to say really, really quickly, the fact that Littlefinger and Sansa both are watching the sparring session, I think that's very important as well. They could have just had Littlefinger up there. They could have just had Sansa, but I think there's a reason that both of them are up there. Because we have been seeing Littlefinger trying to almost manipulate Sansa into his way of thinking, taking her under his wing almost. The fact that she walks off, I think there was both... they were both taken aback. I think Sansa was more just taken aback to see how her sister has progressed as a fighter and the warrior that she's become.
And Littlefinger was like, "Holy crap, she has knowledge on me."
Yeah, and he's going to be like, "I'm going to have to think of something outside the box," and he gives her that kind of curt nod and walks off in typical Littlefinger fashion. I think that, again, that was another scene to me which said that Arya is probably going to be the one to kill Littlefinger, maybe even with the dagger that he gave Bran.
I think she's gonna kill him as Sansa with the mask thing. I think she'll do it that way.
Which mask thing?
Well, I think Arya will basically be Sansa. I don't know if they can do it without them being dead.
I think they have to be dead, don't they? Because they have to take their face.
They have to be dead. Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame.
Their face.
That's a shame. They've written themselves into a bad corner there.
Or they have to be in possession of the face, don't they, to even do it? But I mean, could you imagine if she came back as Catelyn Stark, and that might be this show's way of doing zombie Catelyn Stark, which is a thing that happens in the books, which they haven't done in the show.
Lady Stoneheart, they didn't do Lady Stoneheart in the show, which is probably the thing that the writers have been scrutinized on the most. The fact they didn't have Lady Stoneheart, who's a huge part of the books, even though I'm not even up there on the books. I know that she's a huge part of the books.
But I just think that would be an awesome scene if Arya did come back as Catelyn Stark. Maybe even with the throat still cut, how it's explained in the book, where she has to kind of cover her throat to even talk. If there's going to be anyone to put the fear of God into Littlefinger, I think it's going to be Catelyn Stark. That's funnily enough, maybe that's the case.
Funnily enough, Arya has just come from the twins.
Yeah, and Caitlin was... I keep calling her Caitlin. I know it's Catelyn in the book. I just read it as Caitlin all the time. She was referred to again at the beginning of this episode where he talks about the knife that she tried to stop, and he said like he would have stopped that knife. And
also promising your promise was kept, the pod line to Brienne. So they're not coming back. I'm sure everything links in the end. These writers, give them credit where it's due. They are clever. I know that they mess up some storylines, but everything does come together in the end, hopefully, thankfully. Anyway, let's move to Dragonstone, where on the plan I've written a bunch of jokes, but I'm going to be completely frank here. The first thing that happens at Dragonstone is Missandei gives Dany the "I fucked a dickless dude" look.
And she liked it.
Which Chris will now demonstrate that look.
What?
I'm joking. But anyway, so basically it's a nod back to episode 2, where Missandei and Grey Worm get the Grey Worm on. And there is 2 Missandei scenes in this episode. I'll come back to it in a when we go back to the second part. Let's move on to Jon, master of cave negotiations, taking Dany into a cave.
I really hope.
Yeah.
I hope not for nefarious means that he and Ygritte partook in season 3, season 4. Due to the fact, and I really hope that this doesn't become a thing. I've said this every episode, but they hint at it in this one as well, where Davos says like, "Oh yeah, I've seen the way you look at her. Like, what do you think of her?"
I've seen the way you look at her lovely heart.
Yeah. I really hope they don't set something up between them, because we need to remember, although it wouldn't be out of left field for Game of Thrones to partake in more incestuous relationships, Jon Snow is Daenerys' nephew. I know the age thing is weird, but she's his auntie. Just think about that. I don't want to see those two get together. I say this and I still ship Jaime and Cersei. What does that say about me as a person?
Oh my god, there's 2 Georges
Whoa,
now.
hello.
We have 2 Georges.
God, there's 2 Georges. Oh god.
Twice the fun.
That's too many. That's too many.
It's twice the fun.
But anyway, then we have this very long-winded sentence, which I'm going to read out. Jon shows her, being Dany, the Children of the Forest drawings that definitely came from an adult, probably one with loads of time in their hands, who might pick up skills. I don't know, maybe someone from the wall. They have a lot of free time up there to draw stones. But definitely not a child. Jon hides chalk behind his back, which I'm sure that a lot of people were thinking about this scene. Those are some very, very nice drawings. Definitely not by a child, especially a forest-dwelling child.
I really like this scene with the cave drawings. You talked about the music earlier at the beginning, that it felt a bit different. It felt a bit more cinematic, and it first kicked in for me when the cave of the obsidian is revealed. I like the fact that they're tying it back to the Children of the Forest. We get a little bit of lore there with Game of Thrones, which I like. I love all that stuff. And we're still seeing Daenerys being, persistent as ever, saying, yeah, I will join with you if you bend the knee. And then she cusses Jon Snow out about his pride, and that if he wasn't so prideful, he'd do it.
No. That isn't a cuss out, dude. That isn't a cuss out.
Can we mention how bend the knee to become the best meme of Game of Thrones this year?
Yeah. Not Tree Wizard Bran. And
Jaden Smith Bran. It's a close second.
Now we might have Tarly's shitting whilst dying, being another meme. But I want to say that is definitely not a throwaway line. Do you want to know why? Or a cussing line? Because that's the exact same line that Jon said to Mace. What's his face? Not Mace. Mance Rayder.
Mance Rayder.
Mance Rayder? What was his name?
Mance Rayder.
Mance Rayder.
Mad Mance.
Mad Mance. That's the exact same line that Jon said to Mance. And it links back because Jon is now in that same situation, asking for help, asking for protection. But he's on the other end of the stick this time. And he remembers what happened to Mance and whether these people are safer only because of him. And because of that, I think that makes him question whether he should bend the knee or not. And she says, if a Southern King does, if they will follow Dany if their king says so. That suggests that she is proposing to him.
I guess it just kind of annoyed me from a cinematic sense a bit, because before that, when she's all doughy-eyed saying I will fight for you, Jon Snow. You have my sword, you have my bow, and you have my axe. And the music's swelling and it's all really dramatic. And then it cuts out and she's like, when you bend the knee. It's you'd never do that in person. I know it's a TV show and they have to make it cinematic like that, but it's not just Game of Thrones that does that. Loads of other films do that, where a character, even in The Hobbit, for example, where Thorin basically cusses out Bilbo and then he just goes, I've never been so wrong in all my life. And it's all happy and lovey-dovey. Yeah, maybe that's
Chris,
just me nitpicking.
Chris, just remember what happened last time Jon bent the knee in a cave.
Moving on to... Oh, God, on my plan, I still have Dany ask Jon to bend the knee. We need to get away from bending the knee right now.
Do the sun thing with his tongue. Tyrion is the bearer of bad news, declares that they won the battle, but it was the wrong battle. Dany gets pretty pissed off and flies away with her dragon. She does take counsel from Jon, which makes me think that Jon did bend the knee in the cave and he hasn't told anyone yet.
I don't think he did. I think she just still respects his opinion. I like that scene, actually, because we do what Jon says. He says that she's this close to becoming the next Mad King, Mad Queen in this case. And by the end of the episode, I guess it's left up to the imagination as to whether you think that she has reached that point.
No, because she didn't go to King's Landing. She went and attacked a loot train, which is just army soldiers. She didn't attack civilians or anything like that.
I didn't know there was trains in Game of Thrones. I was really caught off guard when I first saw it all. It felt like something out of Red Dead.
Yeah.
Train doesn't exactly mean train on a track. Train.
Oh, we know. It was
just
funny
means
though. It was
linked
just all the
to trains,
wagons put together. But yeah,
you could call it the loot convoy attack or anything like that. But anyway, so we then have a conversation with Davos and with John, where Davos says, "What do you think of Dany?" John says, "I think she's got a lovely heart. I think her heart's in the right place." And Davos basically goes, "I've seen you looking at her lovely heart," which has to be one of the funniest lines of the episode.
I liked the
hinting that
King
they are
John
probably gonna
line
get
as well.
together.
The King Snow, King John line was pretty funny as well. The Davos, he hasn't been like relegated to comic relief, but I do like his little quips here and there in the episodes.
We then have Missandei talking about bastards. We then have Missandei talking about freedom, which comes forward to a theory, which I mean we can all discuss here. In series 2, Dany speaks to the Quaif, and the Quaif says, "You'll be betrayed once for money, once for blood, once for money, and once for love," along with other things that have already taken place in this series. We've already had blood, which was the blood magic, which had already taken place. We also have money, which was later on in that series with her handmaiden going and conspiring behind her back, making her lose her dragons. We haven't had love yet. And there are a couple people who could betray for love.
Jon Snow.
From this episode. I don't think it'll be Jon Snow. I don't think it will, because that isn't for love.
Time.
I don't think it'll be for love against her. I think it'll be people loving other people. And from that, at the end of this episode, we see Jaime, who will probably survive, be captured by Daenerys, say, "Bend the knee or die." And I think Tyrion will either let Jaime go, letting him escape, and that will be out of love, because he doesn't want to see his brother die, just like his brother did not want to see him die. Or it could be something to do with Missandei and the fact that she loves Grey Worm, which is stated in this episode. And if he ever gets in trouble, she might betray Dany to save the love of her life.
She's not important enough to betray her to a major plot point.
Neither was her handmaid.
And that was series 2, not season 7.
Correct. It could come from anywhere. And seeing as she is one of her most trusted advisors, I mean, it's an even split. It could be Tyrion releasing Jaime, or it could be Missandei and Grey Worm, which has been building for a long time now, I must have to say.
So how do you think that she'd go about rescuing Grey Worm then? Because he's kind of holed up at Casterly Rock, surrounded by Lannisters and Greyjoy ships.
If they manage to get out of there, which I think they will, they'll have to cross back across the entirety of the country to get back to Dragonstone.
Which they'll do in like half an episode in this season.
Maybe.
The Pirate King will get them, don't worry.
I think he will. I think Euron will capture them, and I think he will kind of... Word will get through, and Missandei will be given kind of the choice of give up or rescue her love. And this episode's theme for Missandei is all about freedom. Like, she talks about how she was a slave, she was born in slavery, and she's free to leave at any point. In fact, earlier on in the series, she is offered a ship and told if she wants to, she can go, now that she's free, but she chooses to stand next to Dany. And I think that's important. I think by the end of the series, she will not be serving underneath. I think she will be gone with Grey Worm, whether that is because she has betrayed Dany or whether that is because they've won the war.
I just think that Grey Worm or one of them's going to die. That couple will not survive.
Or they could both die.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the deaths in love together is going to go to the Lannisters, I feel, this series. But it was an interesting conversation with John when he said, you know, will she really let you go on that ship? And even she thinks about it for a second. But I think it's destined for Grey Worm to die. I like him as a character, but now they've got that love angle there and they've sealed it. I think that he'll go.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next bit then? The last bit we need to talk about, the Dragonstone. So we have another character reunion with this one, with Theon returning and meeting with Jon Snow. Now, there were two things that were leaked from this episode. I won't say leaked. There was the picture of Daenerys on the dragon, so I knew that was going to happen at some point.
That was on Entertainment Weekly. That wasn't a leak.
Yeah. But the one picture that was leaked was a set photo of Alfie Allen on the beach with Kit Harington. Loads of people were theorizing that Jon Snow might kill him in that instance, but it wouldn't make any narrative sense to keep Theon alive after the battle with the Greyjoys to then just kill him off in an episode like this. I thought they handled it very well. It's not where I thought Theon's character was going to end up, but I like how he's had to go to the Dragon Queen to seek help from her. And it was a believable reaction. I like how Jon kept him alive because he did technically save his sister, but we have to remember that the last Jon Snow heard of this guy before Sansa was the fact that this guy who he grew up with sacked his entire house and basically ruined everything. And I thought it was great. I liked seeing these characters together, and I like how we're bringing characters together again. I've said that through every single episode, but I do think they are being brilliantly handled.
Yeah, they are. Okay. Let's move on to the one thing that happens in King's Landing. Don't worry, we're getting to High Garden and the Loot Train attack very shortly. It's just one real kind of dialogue that takes place in King's Landing this episode between Cersei and the Iron Bank once again. The Iron Bank saying, I've never really had a debt repaid in full so quickly. And Cersei saying, like, you've got to be on my side now. And kind of, it's a very short dialogue. It isn't much. I don't think it was really even needed in this episode, to be honest. A bad dialogue.
I think it was needed because it added sort of stakes to the whole gold transfer between the two. I think it's set a lot up for, especially with the dragon attack, the fact that the Iron Bank basically places their chips on the highest bidder, which one they think is going to be the most successful now. Up until
and they've got their gold. They've got their gold. They've repaid the debt now. But at the same time, Dany looks like the one who's going to win this war. So
the fact that she has now used a dragon to full effect, wiped out an entire army with like a click of a finger, pretty much. Yes, the gold is safely through. So now the Iron Bank's pretty much paid for, or at least a big majority of it's paid for. Are they going to go with one that can keep supplying their gold, which still gets interrupted? Or are they going to go with someone who now owns a dragon, can control that dragon and do anything with it that they want? I think their allegiance is going to change after this. I think it was necessary as well, just because I like Mark Gatiss. I like how he plays the character. He's basically playing
a very slimy character in this series.
Oh, yeah, completely. Like, he'd self-professed slimy character. But I think it was necessary because the whole theme was about gold, whether people's love for it, like Bronn, the act of moving the gold, and also what it's going to set up for
financial
terms between players of the Game of Thrones.
Okay.
Wow, what was interesting, Chris, I'm relying on you for this. In the scene, Mark Gatiss name drops some kind of army of some sort that are apparently in the books and are very much hyped about, where they have like elephants and stuff. Sounded too Lord of the Rings for me, but I heard about this name of the island. I've heard of it. I don't know if you can remember, because you're my wizard for all the book stuff.
God, I've seen the episode twice now. I don't remember that. She says, I remember Cersei saying like you've had dealings with someone before, and he says yes, we've relied on them for many occasions or something, doesn't he? I can't remember. In all honesty, I don't know. I know that obviously elephants do exist.
Is it the Golden Company?
The Golden Company have been in it before in Game of Thrones, haven't they?
I can't remember,
because you have the Sons of the Harpy, and the Golden Company were. Hang on, I'm gonna consult Google. I know Lord of the Rings better than I do Game of Thrones, in all honesty.
Yeah, Cersei mentions the group in this episode, the Golden Company.
It might be them then.
If you guys want to carry on, I'll just have a look on the.
And we have never seen the Golden Company.
If they've got elephants, like I hope it doesn't happen, because that's just too Lord of the Rings. I know it's fancy, but you know, the Elephant Army, we've already seen that, and we've seen Orlando Bloom take them down. But if this Golden Company thing, I feel like they're too big of a name to be brought into the series at this point. I don't feel like we'll be introduced to new armies as it goes on. I think we're just going to sit now with White Walkers, Lannisters, and Daenerys as well. I think that's exactly why there's less episodes now. All the storylines.
So you think that was just like a name drop, just kind of like a hint of the books? Yeah,
I think it was something to do with that. I mean, I don't know the kind of the books in depth, but it was just interesting getting that name drop, because I saw some people tweeting about it as well. They got excited.
I've just read about it here. It's pretty much what you said. They are considered the largest, most famous, and most expensive sellsword and mercenary company in the Free Cities. The current captain general is Harry Strickland. Despite the notorious unreliability of sellswords, the Golden Company is reputed to have never broken a contract. Their motto is "Our word is good as gold," while their war cry is "Beneath the gold, the bitter steel," pays homage to their founder. I don't know. I think I agree with you there. If they bring elephants into it, that's going to be, especially like in the last couple of seasons, maybe that's going to be too much.
Elephants versus dragons.
Oh, you know, they have done the Windlance already, though, involving dragons. So that was also very similar to the Hobbits.
They did giant mammoths. They did giant mammoths.
That's fair enough, though, because mammoths weren't in Lord of the Rings. But, you know, like I said, well, they had one mammoth. They only had the budget for one mammoth. So let's be fair. It wasn't like a full-on elephant attack.
Yeah, true.
Should we move on to the section we all need to talk about then? Well, a little bit of lead up first, and then.
Okay, let's start at Highgarden before we move on to the train attack. Bronn wants a castle, and that's basically the start of the episode. He wants Highgarden, but Jaime says it's too much hassle. Daenerys would take it back immediately. I think at the end of the episode, he would have taken that castle, and he would have been perfectly fine with it. And then we have guaranteed the money gets through the gates. King's Landing debt has been paid. Bronn then has a conversation with Dickon, which he laughs at, which is respectable. And then they have a conversation about Dickon's first battle, a character who we did see played by a different actor in Series 6. But this is really the first time we actually get to have a dialogue with him, a proper one at least. And he is meant to be Sam's brother.
Is he?
Yeah. You wouldn't see it genetically. But like he's just a normal person. First time he's been into battle. He seems to do good about it, and there's been a couple of things that have been harked back to from one of Robert Baratheon's speeches in Series 1. In the speech, Robert Baratheon talks about him in a battle and a person trying to end the war against the previous Targaryen reign with one strike of the sword, and he sees some jumped up Tyrell bannerman coming charging at him. Maybe it was even Tarly bannerman coming charging at him with his sword. He goes to swing the sword and he misses completely, and Robert kills him. And then he talks about how the Tarlyman or Tyrellian shits itself when he dies.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the same speech where he says that you'd be a fool to meet the Dothraki in an open field of battle. So that speech, a lot of elements from that speech are coming up heavy in this episode. I wonder whether that was on purpose or not, or maybe it's just coincidence. I think it's on purpose knowing this series.
Yeah, I mean, that's been an element that's always been brought up as well, not just the case, but also with Tywin Lannister, you know, shitting gold and things like that. That's always been an element, but definitely that speech here about the Dothraki.
I thought it was just so nice to see Bronn on screen properly. Like last week, like he was in the background and you're just there like, come on, say something, man. And it felt so nice to have him back properly. And obviously later on things happened, which I got scared about. But he's always comedy god, and he is a kind of comedy relief character, but it's not like he's saying stupid things. Everything he says is legitimate because he's a normal person that's got that. He hasn't been born into a high family. He's essentially not words to it, but he knows what he's doing, and that's why he acts so differently with them. And I just think every time he's on screen, he's great. And the actor seems to have amazing chemistry with just anyone he's on screen with.
Yeah,
he does.
Apart from
I think that's just
apart from Lena Headey, apparently, because they had a thing at one point and it didn't end too well. So they wouldn't be on set together.
That was before Game of Thrones as well.
Was it before Game of Thrones? I thought it was on. Yeah, they wouldn't be on set together, would they?
Well, that's ruined it.
I'm sure
Bronn's going to sit on the Iron Throne at the end. He's going to go up to Cersei. He's going to do a whole Euron thing and just kind of waddle up to Cersei and just go, like, I've brought you all of these things. There is only one thing I want in return.
I want to see like a Game of Thrones blind date, like Cersei on the show, and you've got like Bronn offering loads of gold. You've got Euron Greyjoy there offering ships and two very good hands. I don't know who the third one would be. Pick someone else. That could be the comment. That could be the question that we ask people.
Jaime offering his family tree.
But let's get onto the battle now then. So I knew that a battle was coming up. I knew that battle was coming up because in the trailer, pretty much the last thing I can remember that they've shown in the trailer was Dothraki, that slow-mo shot where they all stand on horseback with a bow and arrow. So I knew there was going to be a cavalry charge at some point. I didn't realize a dragon was going to be involved as well. When you hear those horses and like the yells, it reminded me of like Colonel Custer or something at the Battle of Little Bighorn with like Native Americans like sounding the charge and crying. Really, really unnerving stuff. And just to see like Randall Tarley in action as well, because we know that he's been hyped up to be this incredible military leader and he's like ushering orders and stuff and they're all forming up. I love a good battle scene. I love fantasy. It's my favorite genre ever. And just to see a good battle scene. We also need to talk about the fact that this episode was leaked. I forget how many days before, but it was it like 2 or 3 days before?
2 or 3 days before.
It was Friday. Oh my god.
So I was out of the country on Friday. I left. I got there. I got to my hotel room, opened up the group chat, and George is just like, Chris. He's just like spamming me with links. Just like, Chris, it's been leaked. Get on it. It's like the best, like what you say, like best hour of TV or best section of TV you've seen in a long while.
Well, I was coming back from. Well, I went shopping on Friday after work, and I was just on, scrolling down Twitter on the way home as usual, and then it was like a verified news account was like, it's been confirmed that Game of Thrones leak was not hackers, but was in fact like HBO India or some of their distributors. Mm-hmm. Was I like, what? Like Game of Thrones has leaked? Has it? Considering on Thursday you basically said, I hope Game of Thrones doesn't leak because I'm out of the country, and then I just searched Game of Thrones leak. And it was everywhere. People like, give me links, find them. And then I found a download, I found a Vimeo, I was spreading everyone. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like, come and sue me, HBO. You've got bigger fish to fry at the minute. But I was not. After watching it, I'm even more relieved that I didn't wait till Sunday, because on Saturday I went on YouTube and there was a thumbnail spoiler from something, and I just sat there smug, like, well, I've already seen it, so it's a waste.
That's the thing with Game of Thrones. If you're late to the party by even a couple of hours, you're probably going to be spoiled. That happened to me, the finale of season 6. But I'm sure none of us condone leaks or leaking stuff.
No, it's terrible. It's terrible. Do
not.
Let's
be honest.
Just,
if we get Game of Thrones,
just to educate some people as well. Currently, hackers are demanding 20 million by Thursday nights. So people, if you wake up on Friday, let's hope that, not that it's wrong and I wouldn't watch them. I would obviously watch them weekly. I wouldn't watch 3 episodes in a row at all. No. But on Friday morning, they could all be out there.
Yeah. We don't condone leaks, but if it makes us get a Game of Thrones episode early, I'm sure we're all fine with that. But yeah, just thought I'd bring it up. So the battle itself, I guess I see the reason now they've shortened it from 10 episodes to 7, because I guess they have a slightly more budget to play with on a shorter scale. I don't really know. It seems to me they've taken the majority of their budget and put it straight onto this episode. I think this also set a record for most stuntmen set on fire in a single scene as well.
In a single scene and a single sequence, they broke the records for.
Well, they might break it in the next series.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to. They're going to get to King's Landing at some point, absolutely. But I said this at the intro that this, more than anything I've seen in Game of Thrones, like Battle of the Brackets was up there. Blackwater, when I first saw that, absolutely wowed me. This has really pushed the boundaries to me of what can be done on the small screen for TV. Yeah. And I've said it as well, like The Hobbit, a multi-million-dollar movie, couldn't even compare to this. You had Smaug the Dragon and Bard the Bowman. It should have been an absolutely iconic moment. Oh, did I actually say Battle of the Brackets again? Oh, Tate made that mistake earlier.
I've said it a couple of times already. Don't worry, it happens.
Well, Game of Thrones did inspire our show name, so I guess that does help.
It did. But please be sure to tune into any of the Battle of the Brackets that we do.
Yes,
we'll have 2 coming out this month. I think we're still pushing for 2 this month.
There are plenty of tiers to debut. This fight scene, I mean, I watched this in 360p. But you know what? It was worth it. Because you could, I've got a giant tally, so it wasn't as blurry as it could have been. But I just, when it felt like that scene in Jurassic Park when the water shakes before the T-Rex emerges, and you just got Bronn like, what's that? And it's the delay, and it delays and delays. And normally, okay, a film would last maybe 3-4 seconds, but I swear this was a good 20-30 seconds before anything happened. And then it just happened. It was absolutely glorious. I mean, not only was there Dothraki, there was Dragon. There was fighting, there was fire, there was everything happening. There had you feeling for main characters left, right, center. There was almost like a horror scene with Bronn as well. I know I was jumping the wagon, but that is arguably some of the best 15 in terms of scenes. I would put this up there with the montage from the end of season 6.
Mm-hmm.
And well, those two are on their own. This is near the top. Obviously, it's very hard to compare like dialogue scenes to action. So in terms of the action, this is definite. I don't really count Battle of the Brackets, Battle of the Bastards, because that is an hour.
We're 3 for 3. We've all done it.
Yep.
But
yeah, no, seriously, this scene was just phenomenal.
This was like
if you look at, I think it's funny because I was watching the scene, but I respected the scene so much more after I saw the behind the scenes of the Game of Thrones episode. For people to go watch that behind the scenes episode. They have an entire 13-minute long thing of how they did that battle, and it's phenomenal. It makes you completely appreciate cinema to a whole new level. And I can't believe I just said cinema, but it's the small screen. It's TV. But it doesn't feel like TV. It's just so well put together. Everything from just the build-up, the sound of hooves in the background, the panicked preparations, and you haven't even seen them yet. Then they come over the crest of the hill. Then you see them jump up on top of their horses, and they show how they actually were able to do that and stuff like that. And then the dragon comes in. And it's one of those things where it looks like it's going to be a tough fight. It's probably going to be a loss for the Lannisters because you should never fight the Dothraki in an open field. And then the dragon comes in and you realize this isn't a battle. This is a slaughter. This is a massacre. And I think I'm happy that they didn't call it the battle of the loot train battle. I'm happy they called it the loot train attack because this wasn't even fair. This was, I think, next episode we'll probably see the damage that it's caused. But I think the Dothraki maybe lost at maximum like an 1/8, maybe a 1/10 of their army, whilst the Lannisters lost over half.
Yeah.
In one single battle.
I love the fact that the dragon. I mean, how long we've waited 6 years to see. Well, and we've had the odd bits, the original Dracarys with the, we've never had the army. And this felt like watching like an old Godzilla film, just the breathing down upon everybody, just the destruction, the OP, the mentalness of it, and it was absolutely stunning. And Game of Thrones, they know how to do it. And the thing is, what's more insane about this? This is episode 4. There are 3 more episodes, and we haven't seen. Obviously, there's a trailer for next week. We haven't seen anything in any marketing from the last episodes yet, as in outright original trailer stuff like that. We still need to see the not the White Wizards, the White Walkers, and I think we're going to get King's Landing in episode 6 or 7 as well with the fight there. But
I think it could be a 2-parter. I think it might be a 2-parter. 6 and 7 is at King's Landing, perhaps.
I hope so. It'd be fantastic, but I feel that they haven't used all their dragon. They haven't done all their tricks with them. There's so much more.
Only used one dragon and used it somewhat sparingly because she wasn't all out attacking them. She attacked the loot train first. She did burst a hole through just so they could make room, but then she attacked the loot train. And that was really what she was going for. She was going to kind of strike fear in. And I think in the preview for the next episode, you actually see her say, "Join me or die."
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people out of fear will just join her just because. And these are Lannister men. They get paid with money. And if they're in fear, they will drop everything. Like, if there's a choice between their life and the lives of their family and stuff like that, and being killed, they will obviously choose to spare their own lives. There will be a couple of Lannister loyalists who will say, "No, I'd rather burn first," but then you know that a lot of them will join. I think Drogon will join. I really do.
Sorry.
On, no, go on, Judge.
The Bronn scene, I didn't want anyone to die because I love Jaime, I love Bronn, and I felt like one of them was going to bow out on that episode, and maybe in traditional Game of Thrones style they would have, and I'd imagine that they would have got rid of Bronn unless they had something planned for him, which I think they do. there is no coincidence that Tyrion was on that hill watching all of it, which also gave it so much more, because once he clocks on, I know I'm jumping far ahead, but the Tyrion stuff, that added a lot more to that final scene as well.
Yeah, this is kind of springboarding off what you just said, George. I love the end of this episode. Don't get me wrong, this was phenomenal. But there was one thing that stopped it from being truly magnificent for me, and that was the fact that they didn't kill off any sympathetic character. And in all honesty, I think should have been the episode where Bronn did die. I think that would have go. It's when he takes to that wind lance, it feels like a last heroic effort. And I would have liked to have seen him back. I mean, I love the character of Bronn, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that he's still in the series, but I think that a lot of emotional impact was lessened somewhat in this episode purely for the fact they didn't kill off any character. I think that had they have killed off Bronn, people who sing Daenerys' praises like over the fan base, they'd have been shocked because everyone loves Bronn, and to see a character that they love take down a sympathetic character, I think that would have changed the game a bit. People who like Daenerys might be like, oh, okay, maybe she's not the, truly great, untouchable leader that we all know. And also, I think that his character arc was pretty much came full circle in this episode. Had he have died, he begins the episode wanting gold, wanting all the riches and everything like that, and he ends the episode going against all that and trying to be a hero and trying to genuinely stand up against this new threat. And I think kill him off in that scene, I think that would have tied everything up nicely for his character. Also would have added a lot of emotion to the end of this fight, and everything would have just resonated more. That being said, the scene's still fantastic. I mean, we talked about, I haven't seen the behind the scenes. I definitely do want to see the behind the scenes of this episode. But the cinematography and everything, the shot where the Dragonlight sweeps in slow motion, and it's just that line of explosions that go off. The one shot where Bronn's fighting on the field, it reminded me of when Jon Snow's caught in the middle of the Battle of the Bastards. And it's just that one uncut shot. It reminded me of that where everyone's burning around him.
Has anyone seen, well, I don't want to do Batman v Superman comparison, but there's that opening scene of Bruce Wayne. But has anyone seen Thin Red Line? There's an amazing tracking shot in that film where they're fighting through the fog with the Japanese. And that's what Bronn felt like, and I think the camera was quite low it was low angled on him as well. So it was almost like a horror, not horror, but you saw the Dothraki on the hunt to get Bronn. Yeah. And ultimately, it led to another classic Bronn moment. But just the way that episode was, that 15 minutes was almost like 3 short films within one another. Yeah.
And it was the perfect length. It was the perfect length. It didn't go on too long. It didn't feel too short. Every action beat you felt in it. And I like that about it. What else was I going to say?
To finish the scene, we have Bronn versus the dragon, which for a character who talks a lot about songs sung for the men and talks about being a knight in a castle and being knighted and stuff like that, he's going to have a song written about him, isn't he?
He is the Dragonborn. This is why I wore my scarf.
By the end of the series, there will be a song about the man who shot down a dragon, who lit the flame to kill off the Blackwater. Talked about night in Westeros, I think, more than the kings and stuff like that, because people usually make songs and rhymes not about the kings and queens, but about the knights and their tales and stuff like that. So I think he's going to be like a King's Landing celebrity by the end of the series. He'll be a Seven Kingdoms celebrity as well. So Bronn of the Blackwater and his brave fight against the dragon.
But that whole Windlance sequence was just
exactly like The Hobbit.
Yeah. Exactly like The Hobbit, but what The Hobbit should have been.
The barge got Bronn.
Yeah. I put this on Facebook earlier, but I felt way more for Bronn in this scene and felt more heroism. And I hate the term, but it was genuinely on the edge of my seat. I was watching the episode like this, not knowing what was going to happen. And I didn't feel anything like that in The Hobbit.
The problem with The Hobbit, you read The Hobbit before you've seen it. With Game of Thrones, we've now at the overtaken bit where you, a book reader, is no longer in the know. Your self-righteousness has gone out the window. You are terrified as much as the rest of us now.
I guess so, but even what Peter Jackson had millions to work with, and that Smaug scene, if you strip it down to the bare essentials, what it should be, it's about 9 minutes long. And with the exception of one scene in that smog sequence, there is nothing nearly as horrific with people burning, which I think there really need to be. There was no moments of heroism or anything like that. You get one little bit in that film where he tells his son to look at him as if you got Smaug charging behind him in slow motion. That's it. This honestly did way more on a slightly more elevated TV budget than a big budget movie even could, which is just testament to the showrunners and everyone involved in this episode. One question I did want to pose to you guys though is, who do you think this was a victory for? Because I think this was also a loss for Daenerys.
How?
This was like that moment at the end of 300 for me, where you will believe that a god king can bleed. When that spear hits the dragon and she falls from the sky, like I thought it went through the dragon's mouth when I first watched it.
I want to point out right here, after watching the episode 3 times, the dragon is injured. Not by much. It's still able to kind of swoop its leg across the ground. It's still able to do stuff like that. It might not be able to fly for a little bit, but still, it didn't damage it that much. It's going to take about 10 of those giant spear things to actually properly 100% hurt it, maybe to a point where it can't fight anymore. But seriously, that's literally just like, it's an arrow, it's stuck in its skin, it's probably hurting him a little bit.
We can kill it.
But it's not like a big loss for Dany at all. In fact, it rarely is, because the one opportunity that she has to be killed isn't taken. Jaime comes charging in with the horse, realizes he fucks up way too late, and LeBron James comes in and dunks him into the water to save the day.
I think...
But see... Oh, go on, George.
I think literally the whole point is, once the arrow hit Drogon, yes, he survived and stuff, but they know now there's a weakness. And any survivor will see, well, it did get hit. And Qyburn or whatever he looks like that creepy guy from Lord of the Rings. You know, he's just going to make loads more of these and just arm them around King Landing for the inevitable battle. But it was a big moment for that. But I think deep down the win is for Daenerys, but I think we're on a loss for Tyrion now, because I have a feeling that Daenerys will not pick one, but Jaime and Bronn, I think, will both be in the next episode. But I wonder if both will be alive at the end of the next episode. I'm sure. I think Bronn could bow out next week. But they put Tyrion there for a reason. It wasn't to do the best commentary I've ever seen. It was to obviously be there for the aftermath of because she did sort of hint earlier on in the film. She goes, you know, well, she did the threat, or not in the film. She did that threat, didn't she? There's, well, your family, and now he's going to be in a situation where it's Daenerys' enemy, but it's essentially his brother and one of his best mates. Because originally Bronn would have fought the Mountain, but he obviously, he passed, because he says, well, not this time. But going back to if it bleeds, we can kill it. Cut to the Mountain taking his helmet off, and it's Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh my god! I want to see that happen. He's 70 years old now. He can still fucking do it. That would be the greatest finale to series ever. But
anyway, I want to just very quickly say something here.
Yeah.
We're talking about like betrayals and where things will go. Bronn is a sellsword. He goes where the money goes, and Jaime has promised him a castle once the war is over. Bronn now probably knows the war will either end badly or there'll be no castles left because of it. I think he'll join Daenerys' side. I think Tyrion will convince him, and I think that will help the cause slightly. Because Bronn goes where the money goes. He doesn't care about loyalties or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But will Daenerys forgive the man that put an arrow?
Yeah.
I mean, does she even know? I mean, he could say outright, I'm the one who put the arrow in the beast. And then she could maybe give him some form of punishment. I think Tyrion will be a key player here in the negotiations of the next episode. In fact, in the preview, we actually get a scene where Varys and Tyrion talk, and I can't remember if it's Varys talking to Tyrion or Tyrion talking to Varys, but they say you need to make her understand.
Yeah.
So obviously there is, maybe Tyrion lets Jaime loose, lets Jaime go, and Daenerys gets very angry at Tyrion to the point where like it becomes a problem, and this is Varys kind of helping Tyrion out, saying, "Look, you just need to make her understand that it's family, even though after all they've done, like it's still family and stuff like that."
I don't think it's that. I think it's literally just about what she did, the choice that she made herself in this episode. Because remember, Tyrion did warn her not to do anything drastic. Now, obviously, the drastic thing was flying straight to King's Landing and just leveling the city. But she did put herself in harm's way. And doesn't he say what she says, like, what queen am I if I'm not willing to get stuck in, get my hands on it? And Tyrion says, a smart one. Now, the dragon did get hit. She knows there's a weakness now. She knows that the dragons aren't as all-powerful as she once thought. And she very nearly did get hit with a spear out of nowhere, and she wasn't prepared for that. So I think that this has shook her up a little bit. And I think that if Varys and Tyrion and everyone's still behind her, they do need to make her wise up and not be as a naive child queen. More so child queen in the book than she is in the show, but that she's not as untouchable as she thought she was. So although it was an absolute massacre for the Lannisters, I do think that it also has had a knock-on effect for Daenerys herself as well.
I don't think as much, though. I think she'll obviously believe she didn't wear fucking armor in this episode. Does she think that she's fucking unkillable or something like that? I think it's going to need to take something for her to be fully scared to actually wear armor. And maybe this is the trigger. Like, I almost got killed this episode. I need to wear some armor. And that's when Gendry steps in, making the amazing armor with like a dragon's kind of head over the top, just like his bull helmet. Because we're all talking about things that we definitely want to happen, but we know is definitely not going to happen. Then Sandor Clegane comes out of nowhere. The mountain steps up out of nowhere as well. A line is drawn out of fire, and they fight in the middle of the ring.
The ring
bowl takes place. A ring of fire made by Drogon.
Did you got Johnny Cash in the background?
Yeah. He does the intro, just like strumming on his guitar, just like, come on, boys, let's go.
But the last thing I'll say on this episode is that the one thing we kept shouting at Rickon for was that he didn't serpentine. The one thing I'm going to shout at Jaime Lannister for is that, you know, you can throw spears as well. And that's, I guess,
I thought it was more of a joust type thing, but I absolutely loved it. It was just Tyrion's like, flee, fool. And then he's there like, you, what did he say? You fucking idiots.
Fucking idiot, yeah.
And that commentary just made it, because then you felt a bit more, and you know deep down Tyrion wants it. It's like, you fucking idiot, when he's just running away into like Daenerys. But you knew exactly what was going to happen, and it felt like the whole, because I thought Jaime actually might have gone then. And I thought, shit, the ball's on them. So have Jaime kill Cersei and go out this way. That last minute save, but it was at this moment he knew he fucked up. That's precisely what his eyes were. Just when Drogon's head just turns into his path, it was.
I'm not gonna lie, but that is the dumbest moment Jaime has had in a very long time.
He probably thinks he can end the war.
Just a last ditch effort.
Yeah.
Because it's entirely. Do you know what? That harks straight back to the Robert Baratheon speech. A Tarly soldier just come running up to me thinking he could end the war in one strike.
Mm-hmm.
I feel with Jaime on that scene is the whole scene, the 15 minutes. He's looking around and he's like. He's making choices. He's thinking, shit, like, these are dragons. This is my army crumbling. And I think the whole this series is going to be about Jaime's redemption. And I feel, well, he's already had a redemption to me with Bren, but I feel that seeing the army get annihilated, there'll be some repercussion with Cersei where she'll just send the rest of the armies out. They'll get annihilated. And I don't know, just him looking around, it's building up the tension for him and Cersei when the time comes.
I think the words that have stuck in his head from last episode will bleed through. In this episode, when he sees people turning to dust, he looks away. And this is a slightly different situation to him killing the Mad King, because the Mad King was threatening to burn his own people physically. Like, he would be the instigator of the burning, and it will be his own people. I think it's going to be Cersei refusing to give up and saying, we'll just keep sending more people to be burnt. And that's what will trigger him to going, this is exactly the same situation, like it or not. Like, and then you're just stuck there with just a horrible situation where Jaime has to kill Cersei to save the people. Once again, killing the Mad Queen. But that only happens if Tyrion lets Jaime go, which I think will also possibly happen. And that'll be the betrayal for love. It's all coming together, guys.
One thing we could end on is, do we think this has been the best episode of season 7 so far? Or?
Yes.
I think this is the best episode of this series so far.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, season 7.
With the dialogue, with everything else involved. It was shorter than Battle of the Brackets. In fact, Battle of the Brackets. Damn it. It was shorter than Battle of the Bastards. In fact, this is the shortest episode of this series. It's 44 minutes. All the other episodes are 55 plus 2. I think the longest episode is an hour and 10, an hour and 20 for the final episode. So I mean, it's just phenomenal the amount they do in this episode, the narrative, and just the battle at the end. It's just brilliant. I don't think we've seen better than this. Battle of the Bastards was good, but this is huge. This is massive.
We might do in a few weeks, though. Who knows? So I've said everything I pretty much can
East
on
watch
this
next
episode.
East watch next episode.
Yep. Yep. So yeah, that'll do it for our review and speculation on Game of Thrones episode 4, The Spoils of War. Join us next Tuesday where we'll be giving our review on episode 5, Eastwatch. We ended with questions last time. We'll do the same with this one. So there'll be another 2 questions out to commenters. Who do you think really won the battle at the end of this episode? Do you think it was Daenerys or do you think it was the Lannisters? For all your reasons down below. And also, which do you think is the best battle scene that we've had in Game of Thrones, going all the way back to series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and including this one, of course. Which one do you think is the best? Leave your comments in the description. What am I talking about? Leave your comments in the description down below. Get commenting and all that good stuff. So, yeah, that'll do it for this one. Thank you to everyone that's been live in the chat today. We've had comments from Marco, Minko, Claudia. That'll do it for us. Hit that subscribe button. We've got a lot of content coming out now. We're getting back into movie reviews as well this week. There'll be trailer reactions from me. We've got other individual shows going along at the same time. So hit the subscribe button and join us next week on Tuesday. That'll do it from us. Until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.